Hello, my name is Colin Brown, and I will be presenting Chapter 18, Forecasting. Forecasting is a vital function and affects every significant management decision. Finance and accounting use forecasts as the basis for budgeting and cost control. Marketing relies on forecasts to make key decisions such as new product planning and personnel compensation. Production uses forecasts to select suppliers, determine capacity requirements, and drive decisions about purchasing, staffing, and inventory. Different roles require different forecasting approaches. Decisions about overall directions require strategic forecasts. Tactical forecasts are used to guide day to day decisions. So, the decoupling point is the point at which inventory is stored, which allows supply chains to operate independently. The choice of the decoupling point in a supply chain is strategic. Forecasting helps determine the level of inventory needed at the decoupling points. The decision will be affected by the error produced in the forecast and the type of product, easily inventoried or easily perishable. So, the different types of forecasts, there are four basic types. One is qualitative, one is time series analysis, one is causal relationships, and the other is simulation. The time series analysis is based on the idea that data relating to past demand can be used to predict future demand. So, identification of trend lines is a common starting point when developing a forecast. Common trend types include linear, S curve, asymptotic, and exponential. So, using the time series analysis, you use the past to predict the future. Short term forecasting would be considered less than 3 months, and that's used mainly for tactical decisions. Medium term forecasting is 3 months to 2 years, and it's used to develop a strategy that will be implemented over the next 6 to 18 months. Example would be meeting their demand. And the last would be a long term forecast, which is greater than 2 years. It's useful for detecting general trends and identifying major turning points. So, choosing an appropriate forecasting model depends upon the time horizon to be forecast, data availability, accuracy required, size of forecasting budget, and availability of qualified personnel. Forecast is the average of a fixed number of past periods. For the simple moving average, useful when demand is not growing or declining rapidly and no seasonality is present. It removes some of the random fluctuation from the data, and selecting the period length is important. Longer periods provide more smoothing, shorter periods react to trends more quickly. Using the weighted moving average, it is the simple moving average formula that implies equal weighting for all periods. A weighted moving average allows unequal weighting of prior time periods. The sum of the weights must be equal to 1, and often more recent periods are given higher weights than periods farther in the past. So when selecting your weights, experience and or trial and error are the simplest approaches. The recent past is often the best indicator of the future, so weights are generally higher for more recent data. If the data are seasonal, weights should reflect this appropriately. Using exponential smoothing, that is a weighted average method that includes all past data in the forecasting calculation. More recent results weighted more heavily. The most used of all forecasting techniques is exponential smoothing. It's an integral part of computerized forecasting, and it's well accepted for 6 reasons. Number one is exponential models are surprisingly accurate. Number two, formulating an exponential model is relatively easy. 3, the user can understand how the model works. 4, little computation is required to use the model. 5, computer storage requirements are small. And last 6, tests for accuracy are easy to compute. So the effect of trends using exponential smoothing, it is the presence of a trend in the data causes the exponential smoothing forecast to always lag behind the actual data. This can be used corrected by adding a trend adjustment. The trend smoothing constant is delta using the formula. So in the linear regression analysis, regression is used to identify the functional relationship between two or more correlated variables, usually from observed data. One variable, the dependent variable, is predicted for given values of the other variable, the independent variable. Linear regression is a special case that assumes the relationship between the variables can be explained with a straight line, hence linear. In a time series decomposition, it's chronologically ordered data are referred to as a time series. And a time series may contain one or many elements. It can be trend, seasonal, cyclical, autocorrelation, and random. Identifying these elements and separating the time series data into these components is known as decomposition. So forecast error is the difference between the forecast value and what actually occurred. All forecasts contain some level of error. Sources of error would be bias when making a consistent mistake is made, or random, which are errors that are not explained by the model being used. Different ways to measure error would are mean absolute deviation, also known as MAD, or mean absolute percent error, as well as tracking signal. So causal relationship forecasting uses independent variables other than time to predict future demand. This independent variable must be a leading indicator, and many apparently causal relationships are actually just correlated events. Care must be taken when selecting causal variables. Using multiple regression techniques, it's often more than one independent variable may be a valid predictor of future demand. In this case, the forecast analyst may utilize multiple regression. It's analogous to linear regression analysis, but with multiple independent variables. Multiple regression supported by statistical software packages. So for qualitative forecasting techniques, it's generally used to take advantage of expert knowledge. It's useful when judgment is required, when products are new, or if the firm has little experience in a new market. Examples of qualitative forecasting techniques include market research, panel consciousness, historical analogy, and the Delphi method. So collaborative planning, forecasting, and replenishment, also known as CPFR, is a way-based process used to coordinate the effects of a supply chain. It includes demand forecasting, production and purchasing, inventory replenishment, and it integrates all members of a supply chain, including manufacturers, distributors, and retailers. And it really depends upon the exchange of internal information to provide a more reliable view of demand. So the 5 CPFR steps, first would be creation of a front-end partnership agreement. Next would be a joint business planning. Next would be development of demand forecast, then sharing your forecast, and then inventory replenishment. So forecasting is a fundamental step in any planning process. Forecast efforts should be proportional to the magnitude of decisions being made. Web-based systems like CPFR are growing in importance and effectiveness. All forecasts have errors. Understanding and minimizing this error is the key to effective forecast planning. So that is my presentation on Chapter 18. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.